I've sacrificed safety, security, and comfort for a dream. For a chance, however slim, at something more. I've stood in countless assemblies, trying to inspire children to take risks, to follow their dreams, and never settle for second best. Yet, truth be told, I was standing before them as a hypocrite.
A plus B over 4, and then it could be over 8, but it could also be over 16. I've liked wrestling since I was 4 or 5 years old, since as young as I can remember, really. And that was it. I was just a fan for the majority of my childhood. I never really realised that being a wrestler was an option in the United Kingdom, to be honest. Which obviously you can solve, but the chances of making a mistake is quite high. So my degree was in mathematics. It's probably fair to say that I just didn't really have sort of an academic passion, but I was good at mathematics. I could do maths. On the left-hand side of the initial equation, the coefficient of x squared is 10. If I were to expand everything here, then the coefficient... And when I graduated the degree, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So I'd have an x squared inside this bracket, and when I multiplied it by a, I'd end up with ax squared. I started looking up and considering the idea of being a wrestler, and it went from there, really. I attended a local Welsh wrestling training school, Celtic Wrestling at the time, run by Thomas Bassey and Carl Cayman Griffiths. They sort of gave me my start, my grounding in it, and from there I went out with a guy called Joe Hill to Canada. I trained out there for 6 months, came back, sort of continued my adult life with normal jobs and did wrestling as a weekend warrior, I guess. So that's the best way to find the third unknown in a problem like this, because there's not a substitution, because obviously I've used both of the useful substitutions, which is 3 and minus a half. So I worked in a cinema, scooping popcorn and stuff, but that was working in a cinema scooping popcorn even though I had a degree in mathematics and was a qualified school teacher. And after a while, I remember someone who I did my PGCE with came into the cinema and I served them their popcorn, and they were like, "What are you doing? Just do some supply teaching or something if you want to be a wrestler, you know?" And I was like, if I do supply, I'll fall into teaching, and that's not really the idea, you know. I want to be a wrestler. So I worked as a classroom teacher, developed to be a head of year, head of year 9, then a head of house, and then eventually became the head of the junior school for 2 really fun, really successful years that I really enjoyed. I certainly hit a glass ceiling, in my mind, hit a glass ceiling with what I could accomplish in professional wrestling whilst still having a job like being a head teacher. So it wasn't possible for me to wrestle more than once a weekend. It wasn't possible for me to train and diet as much as you really need to progress any further. So it was either sort of say goodbye to that or say goodbye to teaching. So of course there were reservations. I mean, I'm going from a good, comfortable salary on PAYE to self-employed status with absolutely no guaranteed annual income ultimately in my wrestling profession. It's one of the most fascinating forms of physical theatre. amount of emotion we can extract from an audience if they're willing to suspend their disbelief. And the way that it's, you know, live and raw and extremely physical. It's kind of unlike anything else in sports or in entertainment, really. Stands alone. I was really nervous when I went in to speak to the head because I knew how much the school had given to me, and they would maybe have been justified to turn around and say, you know, we've invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, in some ways a lot of money in your career progression to just leave now.
I can remember the day that Ed told me. I could tell there was something on his mind. And I thought he was going to say that he was going to leave to be a head teacher somewhere else, and I felt really gutted. And then he said, I want to be a professional wrestler, and my heart lifted, and I think it's wonderful. We tell our children to go for your dreams, reach out and take them. And he's a young man who's tremendously talented, and he's got to follow his dreams. So, you know, it's an amazing thing that he's done.
It went from us having a conversation about ways we could improve the junior school, ways we could move on into 2017, 2018, to her asking me how wrestling was going, me starting to explain that wrestling's going really well and there are opportunities and avenues to pursue, her seeing the look in my eyes and her literally telling me, you've got to leave. I was happy to play along with whatever they wanted to portray as a reason for leaving. So if they wanted to go down a route of me taking a hiatus and leaving it fairly up in the air, then I would have been comfortable with that, to be honest. But they didn't. They celebrated it. The message that went out to parents was that he's like this since he was 5 years old and he's pursuing it. The official PR releases said that I was going off to chase my dream of being a professional wrestler. Made the last few months in the school pretty emotional. Professional shows, if we were drawing 200 people, that was a big deal, you know, that was a good show. We were there when wrestling meant wrestling in a fairground, in the rain, in front of an audience that just walked away halfway through the match, and being able to compare that now to wrestling in the Electric Ballroom in front of 700 people who sold it out 6 months prior, and wear your t-shirts and know your chants and know the names of all your moves on a product which has an on-demand platform which goes out to hundreds of countries. That's absolutely unreal to see that transformation in the British scene.
Your reigning, defending King of Chaos, the Pride of Wales, Eddie Dennis!
anytime I make like another step in my career as a professional wrestler, it vindicates the decision that I made, because it shows that I did have the potential to achieve good things in the industry, and maybe it was the fact that I wasn't committing enough to it that was stopping me from achieving my potential, if you like.
I'm only first in line for a goddamn rematch. Yeah!